to Ellie's channel. I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the things that I wish I would have known before I started homeschooling. And it took me a long time to be able to decide if that's the route that I wanted to go. And there was a lot of ups and downs at first, and there was a lot of challenges, like I had mentioned in previous videos. So I wanted to give you my best advice and tips if you guys are considering homeschooling, and what I wish I would have known if I had the choice back then. So let me give you a little bit of a background story first. I never had anticipated homeschooling. Homeschooling was a thing that growing up in Bulgaria was not a thing. And actually I was talking to a friend the other day, it is still not a thing. They started doing homeschooling because of the coronavirus, and that is the first time that parents have ever homeschooled in Bulgaria. So it is definitely a foreign concept whenever it was first introduced. Well, my husband and I had a gymnastics business, and starting out, there were a few homeschool moms that have reached out. And mind you, this was about 10 years ago or so, or a little longer. And your typical homeschool mom back then in the South was not your typical mom that you would envision as a homeschool mom now. So there was a lot of judgment there. And I would have never really thought that my children would want to live that way, nor would I want them to live that way. So it was something that, it was great for somebody who did it. It was just not something that I have ever wanted to envision for my family or myself. And to begin with, I didn't even think I had the patience. I mean, I wasn't a mom. I didn't think I could have the patience to sit and explain everything and bring it down on a toddler level. So fast forward a few years, my husband and I get married, we have kids, Braden is born, we live in town really close to the gym that we owned, and I started looking into schools because I knew it takes a little while to find a school. Well, little did I know, we'll find a lot an hour away in a better school system. This Blue Ribbon School, I have really fell in love with everything about it, and we move out and we commute, like I said before. And I decided that I didn't want to put him in school. Well, that was all great. My husband was supporting me throughout the whole entire journey. And I was like, whatever you want to do, you'll be the one homeschooling him. So that's your choice. You know, if you want to do that, that's great. If you don't want to do that, that's great. So we sat down, we talked about the pros and the cons. And my biggest concern at first was socialization, because that's what you would hear about homeschoolers, right? Right. Exactly. So at first I'm like, oh, socialization, okay? I don't know where he'll get it. My husband's like, he's around 450 kids each week. If he's not getting socialized, then I don't know who is. So that worried, that was the back of my head, was like totally illegitimate, because it was not something that was even valid. And it just has to be brought out that way. So let me wrap all that up, and I'll give you more details as we go. And I brought my little dandy notebook because I didn't want to miss anything or get off topic, because, you know, I can do that. So number one, I felt the pressure that society in general, especially in the United States, forces you to teach your kids how to read and write extremely early. And so, of course, naturally, I wanted to do what everybody else was doing and what was supposedly best for my child, because this was a test and proven system. And I started doing like a little pre-K classes and doing ABCs. Well, at first, my oldest son had a lot of interest. And then I've noticed his interest go to a different direction, but I was so set on schooling him the way that you would do in a pre-K classroom setting or a kindergarten classroom setting eventually, that I had to sit there and follow the curriculum and constantly do research and constantly push him to read and write. For what? So he can learn how to read by the time he's 4 and 5 and say, my baby can read? Come on, you guys. Think about what they are actually reading. They're not reading. If you turn on the TV and turn the subtitles on, can they read? I bet you not. So what we're doing is we're installing little word segments inside of their head, and we call that reading. But they're reading the primers that are specifically designed to help them learn how to read. So they're not reading, but we like to say that we are. And it's almost like this competition that we have in between parents. And like, oh, my baby started reading at 3. How old was your son when he started reading? It doesn't matter. Is your son happy? That's what matters to me. Not that he can read. Everybody's going to learn how to read. It's inevitable when you have an interest in something for you to develop a skill that you needed. Say that tomorrow you wanted to start playing games, a video game. You've never played a video game in your life, but you have an interest and you're wanting to play it. So you have the desire and you're going to learn. Well, that's the same thing with reading. If you get to a point, like say that you're 6 or 7 years old and you can't read, but all your friends are reading and you want to know what your video game is saying or what the textbook is saying or what the sign is saying, you're inevitably going to pick up on little words and you're going to start reading whenever you're ready, not whenever you're made to read. And half of the time you don't really read until the time you're ready to read anyway. Kind of like I said with the primers, you recognize the words, but you're not fluently reading. You can't pick up a book that's for an adult and start reading. So anyway, I really, 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 really wish I would have known that pushing my oldest son to read and write at an early age and turning him off of the writing, because till this day, he is absolutely with the passion disliking the whole handwriting idea because I made him do it so much. And my youngest son, that I totally had a completely different approach towards, he loves writing. The other day we were wrapped up with our whole entire curriculum. We were supposed to be traveling. We weren't supposed to do anything else. And he's like, Mama, can we do some school? Because I really like school. And that's his idea. Like, this is fun for him. He's not brainwashed to a point where like this is unpleasant because we have to follow all these different things that the curriculum says that we have to follow and turn in all these extra work. Because at the end of the day, sometimes you think about, yes, you homeschool, but are you doing it? What are your reasons for doing it? Because if you're following the same exact program that the school is following, well, you might as well just send them there, you know? So anyway, the reading and the writing, number one, because most countries, besides the United States, most kids don't start reading until the age of 7. That's when they naturally progress towards reading, and that's when they naturally actually make the conscious decision that they're ready to read, and they pick up on it so much faster than any other time throughout their lives. Now, there are some kids that go a little bit above that 7 age mark. There are some kids that start reading earlier. That's great. But when we're pushing our kids, we're not necessarily doing them a favor. So what if you have a child that reads at 4 but absolutely hates reading for the rest of their lives? Well, good deal. I'd rather have a child that starts reading at 7 and is stuck around with a book all day long and knows how to access information and find resources, and that's what he would use the reading for. So that's number one. Let's see, number 2. Understanding curriculums. Okay, that was a major one for me. So I don't know, there was a couple of little factors that could have influenced that, but I had just delivered Alex. He was a couple weeks old and had decided that Braden was not going to go to pre-K. And that whole entire, so Alex was born in June, he was supposed to start school in August. So that whole entire summer I spent looking through different curriculums. We had a school, a homeschool school inside of the gym that we owned. And he was the youngest, he was going to be the youngest one, so I wasn't going to send him there. I was going to do everything myself. And he was kind of really like up for whatever. I mean, I could have pulled out any kind of thing before him and he would play with it. I was really on to like Montessori style stuff. I had bought a lot of resources, Montessori resources for the first 3 years of his life. We did a lot of like coordination skills and a lot of like numbers with sand and like really like wooden puzzles, and we did a lot of just like natural Montessori learning. And once we chose the curriculum, it was like more strict towards whatever was wanted from that curriculum. But that whole entire summer, you guys, I had stressed myself out and almost had like an anxiety attack on a daily basis, because I'm like, what should I do? There's so many options, there's so many curriculums. Like, do I follow this curriculum? Do I follow that curriculum? Which curriculum can I follow if I decide that this is not for me and he wants to go to school next year, or that this is not working out for me or him, and we decide together that we want to go to school? So I didn't know what was the right thing, and there was a gazillion options and curriculums. So what I decided to do is pick and choose, and boy, was I wrong to do that, because I decided to make my own curriculum from curriculums that I intensively read about, and I chose some of the things that I liked about them. So I had a curriculum from here for reading, a curriculum for here for writing, a curriculum for here for science, a curriculum for here. It was combined. And then I had Pinterest, and that was blowing up my mind because I'm like, arts and crafts every day. We should be doing something artsy and craftsy, and we should incorporate whatever we're doing with our letters and our numbers in the arts and the crafts project. I was just overwhelmed with all of the ideas that I was given constantly. And I had signed up for like all these different subscriptions for different ideas for how to do different things. Well, that first year was a mess. I was thinking that I should homeschool him in a traditional kind of way, the way that I was taught. He was a free spirit that didn't really care for what I had to say. I had changed our little playful get together every day that we learned, and he wanted to learn, to something that was miserable for him and myself. And I was stressing myself out. He was stressing out because they can pick up on your moods like there's no tomorrow. Your kids are going to know if you're having a bad day, and they're going to know if you're frustrated. They're going to know if you don't know what you're doing. So step back, relax, and really look at their age. They're 3 or 4 years old. We don't have to keep their attention for so long. And they are learning, you guys. Even like now, what I'll do with my youngest son, I'm more like unschool him. Yes, I do school stuff with him, but I follow his lead. So if he wants to write today, great, we're gonna write. If you don't want to write today, we're not going to write. But he's probably doing so much more than Braden did at his age because he's not forced to do it. And it's so funny to see how psychologically reversed that is, because he's thriving and he wants information. He needs information. Yes, I put things around for him to be curious about it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I didn't put up all the books and wait for him to say, hey, how about I go upstairs to my classroom and I find a book that's hidden in the drawer? No, I'll put it out, and if he has an interest in it, that's great. If he doesn't have an interest, then that's great too. I'm not going to push it, and it has worked out great. So curriculum, second year, was a curriculum that I had bought, and that worked out great because I followed a whole entire curriculum, and I didn't necessarily agree with the whole thing, but I followed the whole thing. It was so much easier. And then the third year, I did a Bulgarian curriculum. So Braden learned how to read and write in Bulgarian, and obviously we still did first grade in English. So he did first grade in Bulgarian, first grade in English, which was pretty amazing because he learned how to read and write. But again, it was forced reading and writing because he did not want to learn yet. He was okay with me reading to him. And to this day in Bulgarian, he can read, he can write, but he chooses to get me to read and write, and that's okay with me because he knows how to. But it's so funny. Alex, I always point with my finger whenever I'm reading, and Alex would pick up on words just because he's seen them so many times. And I never had to teach him a letter. He doesn't know the letters in Bulgarian, but would tell me how different words, like how they're grouped and what they mean. So obviously, forced learning is not the way to go, but everybody makes their own choice, and I can only tell you guys my mistakes. That's the way that I learned. I wish I would have done things a little bit differently, but that's how I learned, and luckily I have my youngest son to correct those mistakes. I mean, it's sad to say, but you don't know until you try it, and I'm glad that I caught my mistakes early on, and I realized that what was working for me may not work for somebody else, and vice versa, because at this point, if I have to choose another curriculum, it would be like this past year we did an online curriculum. I realized that my oldest son had more of a retention on online curriculums as opposed to me going through books, him writing and doing all these additional things. So I did an online curriculum with a little side writing that he would do on his projects because he absolutely likes science and he loves doing little projects. And so he would do his writing based off on the projects that he made. So I didn't make him write, but I gave him a choice to do it on a topic that he chose over his project that he had made, and that was really interesting for him, and it was very easygoing. And he wanted to get up every morning. He's like, Mama, can I get started with my school? When have that ever happened before? Never, guys, never. So find what works for you, find what works for your child, and make a decision together. Unfortunately, Braden had to be 7 years old before we had to realize what worked for him and what worked for me, and we made that decision together on what would work best for us. me as a facilitator and him as the person that wants to know. So I'm okay if he skips a lesson. I don't really care. I'm okay if he skips 5 lessons. If you know it, we're not going to sit here and drill it because the curriculum says you have to. Well, that's good for the curriculum because the curriculum is trying to teach a classroom full of kids and drill it into their heads. But if you're ready and you know it, we're not going to spend 5 days on a material that you're really well aware of. And so another thing that I started doing just recently is he was doing in the program where we did time for learning. In the program, you had a selection of the grade. So he was doing 3rd grade science. He was doing 4th grade science, 3rd grade social studies, and 3rd grade reading, and 2nd grade writing, and whatever else is in that program. So you can change it up. If your child is way advanced past the level that they're in, say, their grade, you can change it up. Don't keep them back because the curriculum says so. You have so many options, and it's weird because you don't think about it starting out, but you have all the options in the world. You are the one that gets to make the choice every day with your child of what you're going to learn and what you're not going to learn. And guys, think about this. At the end of the day, are they really going to use all of the information? Are they really going to know everything that they were supposed to learn? Or are they going to remember all of the things that they wanted to know and wanted to engage in and wanted to learn about? So I'll look at it this way now. If you're interested in something, yes, spend an extra 20 minutes. Before I was like, no, we have to get done with this so we can get started with that, so we have to go to work and have to go to sport practice and do whatever else. No, you don't have to do that today. Spend your time. If you're interested in reading for the next 45 minutes and we're going to skip math, oh great, we're going to skip math. Don't disencourage something that they're doing, they're learning, so you can do something else that they're not interested about. And that took me a while to actually recognize. Number 3, because I can talk about curriculums for a long time, people's ideas. I think that one drove me crazy. I think mainly the reason why I struggled so much was the first couple of years of homeschooling was because of somebody else's opinion. And so, you know, when you're young or whenever you have accepted someone else's opinion and you validate their opinion, you want them to agree with you. And so whenever you see that disagreement between, say, parents or grandparents or friends or, anybody that you care about, and they're constantly in debate of what you're doing and what you're doing is wrong, that really hurts your feelings and you start questioning yourself, is that the best thing for my child? Yes, it is. If you have made that decision for yourself and your child is happy with it, yes, it is absolutely the best decision that you will ever make. You won't regret it. I promise you, no homeschool mom has ever said, I wish I didn't do that. Because at that point, you put them in a regular school system and they'll be happy and you'll be happy. But if you and your child are happy, that is the absolute right decision. Don't care what your mama has to say, what your daddy has to say. I know you love them. I love mine too. But it took me a long time to realize that that's their opinion. They are entitled to it. I try to help them understand why I do the things that I do. But at the end of the day, if they don't agree with me, well, they don't agree with me, and that's not my problem because that is my family now. My husband agrees with me, my children agree with me, and I agree with myself. So that's all the validation that I need nowadays. But guys, 4 or 5 years ago, I would have cried having this conversation. I would have been like, well, why didn't I accept this? Why did not understanding, like, this is the best thing for us as a family. We have decided this and I want your support, but you're not giving it to me. So I know a lot of you guys are going to struggle with that, and I'm here for you. Drop me a comment in the section below if you need any help, because I have went through it and it was probably one of the hardest things, because you do want the validation of the people that you care about. That's natural. We as humans do want appreciation and validation for the things that we do, and especially from people that we care about. And that's totally natural. But at the end of the day, we have to branch off. We're our own individuals. And yes, our parents have raised us. And for that reason, they should know that they have raised responsible adults that can make responsible choices for themselves and their children. So by all means, if you're ever struggling with that kind of thing, do not make it your reason not to homeschool your children, because I absolutely guarantee you, you'll regret it, because that's not what you wanted to do. So you're going to turn around 10, 15 years down the line, it's like, I wish I would have done that, but you don't have the choice to do that anymore. So make the choice for yourself today, not for anybody else. Number 4. Oh, this is a very good one. DSchooling. I should have started off with that one. Deschooling is a thing, you guys. If you were not homeschooled, like most of us parents that consider homeschooling, we were not homeschooled. That was not a big thing back then. You have to deschool yourself, and I don't know why I didn't start off with this one. You were in the school system. You have a mindset that was installed for you for so many years. And in order to come out of that, you have to deschool yourself. And like I said in the beginning, it took me so many years to deschool myself and understand that there is a way that I can teach my sons to retain the information, and there is a way that they accept that information and understand it on a deeper level. And so I had to step back and reevaluate what I know, because at first, when I first started homeschooling, it was sit down. I'll show you my classroom setup. I can't turn you around right now, but I have a desk there for one of the children. I have a table here for the other child. Sit down, make sure you have your notebook out. They had book bags. Yeah, that was ridiculous. Get everything out your book bag. Let's get it set up. I mean, I was teaching them as if they were in a classroom, except they weren't there 8 hours a day. They were only here for 2 hours, and then they had the rest of the day to do whatever their little hearts desired. Well, I had to step back and look at what I'm doing and why am I doing it the way that I'm doing it. Is it because out of habit? Yes, it's because out of habit, because we don't know any other way. Until you start doing it yourself and you don't start making the choices on a daily basis, if that works for you, you just pick up wherever you have left off. That's natural. Don't beat yourself down for it. What are you going to do from today on? It's what matters, because a lot of times if you don't know, but then you just don't know, you can't blame yourself for doing it the wrong way and then finding out the right way afterwards. But after you find the right way, did you correct it? Did you change anything? And that's what it boils down to. I had to step back and look at what I didn't want to do, why I didn't want to send you to school, why I didn't want you to have those habits. I don't want you to be a robot and sit there and be somebody's worker for the rest of their lives. No, I want you to be an entrepreneur. I want you to make your own decisions. I want you to get up today and tell me what you want to do and what you're interested in and how you're going to do it and present it to me. That's all I'm looking for nowadays. I'm not looking for someone else's curriculum and somebody else's understanding of what my child should learn at the age of 7, because my child may be ready today, but they may not be ready. So at the end of the day is what information are you wanting to pass down to them and what are they interested in hearing? Because my husband used to say for the longest time, you can teach them whatever you want and plant the seeds, but until they're ready, they're not going to understand it. And I finally get that now. But, it took me a little while. Baby steps, baby steps. So, last thing, number 5. So, it's really important to find a support system if you can. I'm having a hard time, and I always struggle with that one. Because if you find other moms that have the same like-minded mindset, they're going to support you. You're going to become friends with them. Your kids are going to become friends with their kids, and it's so much easier because you have someone else that is doing the exact same thing that you're doing, even though half the society may not agree with you. And so I'll tell you a little quick story of how the idea of homeschooling ever came around at all in the back of my head. That was a possibility. I had a friend, a really, 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 really good friend, and her daughter was, I guess, about 7 or 8 years old, and she worked out of the gym, maybe a little bit older, maybe like 8, 9, and she worked out of the gym. Well, my friend was there, and she homeschooled her daughter and her 2 older sons. So one of the sons was, say, like 10, the other one maybe like 11 or 12. And the reason why they were at the gym was because her husband was a movie producer, and they were shooting a movie in Louisiana, and they were here for like, say, 2 years or something. I seen that woman homeschool her kids in a most untraditional way. I mean, some days they came and cleaned the gym, and they didn't do any school, and that was okay with her. They would just catch it up tomorrow, and she would do school just for whatever they were interested in. And it absolutely amazed me. And I was like, but her husband is in the movie industry. Like, that's normal for them. When I turn around and look at what and how traumatically she has changed my life and my understanding of homeschooling and a homeschooling mom. She's my mentor homeschool mom. She's absolutely amazing. And so I always strive to kind of reach a platform like her and plateau there if I can't go any higher. But at the end of the day, her kids were the most humble, the most grateful, the most polite kids that I had ever met. On top of, they came from money. I mean, they had a lot of money. You could never tell. They were homeschooled, and according to her, they didn't do enough of the work. You could have never tell. They were absolutely amazing. It was like my go-to family, and I appreciated having the opportunity to have met them, because it changed my life forever. But they moved away a little while after I started homeschooling Braden. So it was a struggle to find someone with the same understanding, because most people in Louisiana that I personally have met are either doing co-ops that are very religious, which I don't have any problem with that, but I want to keep that for myself and my children whenever we're home, as opposed to doing it somewhere else. And I didn't want to get together for a religious class. I wanted to get together for an actual school and an interaction. So that's why I couldn't really find a circle that was more of a, I guess, fitting in my idea. Though recently, right before we had the COVID-19 pandemic, we had found a group that would get together in a park. So I thought that was really nice, but we'll see how that goes after I guess that we're allowed to go out and do all that stuff. But to wrap things up, you guys, those are the 5 things that I wish I would have known before I started homeschooling. And it's hard to make a decision when you don't have the support. But if you think that that's the best decision for your family, by all means, make it for yourself and make it for your kids, because you would never regret it. If you guys have any questions whatsoever about anything that I talked about, please comment below. I'll be glad to answer them and help you guys as much as I can. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please go ahead and do that now. Don't forget to like and turn on the notification button. I'll see you guys next time.